Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Katie, for those who have for some reason forgotten, and this is Books R Us. So today I will be talking about my September monthly wrap-up. Now I realize it's already 2 weeks into October, but I realized I didn't do this video before, so I am doing it now. I will be referencing my September TBR video, so I will link that in the description below. But let's get started. So the first book I read that month was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill, which was on my TBR. For those who need a refresher, it's about a town who lives in a bog, basically, and who has to send one child to a specific place, and a witch will take them to a different village. Well, it turns out the witch doesn't know why the children are being left, and she's discovered this, and she's like, well, the children shouldn't just be left out in the woods by themselves, so she takes them to another village to be looked after. And I really liked this book because it brings some magic into it. It talks about family, it talks about relationships. So I really liked it if you have a younger sibling in their teens or middle grade, or a child in that age range, to get them kind of introduced to magic. So I really liked that one. The next one I read was A Long Walk to Water by Lindo Sue Park. It follows two different characters who are in two different times. It's semi nonfiction. It's based on a true story. So it's based on a true story, but it's kind of fictionalized. One storyline follows a boy who is displaced because of the Sudan war, like 20 years ago. And then the current one storyline follows a girl who learns that her village is getting a well, so that they don't have to walk so far, so that the girls can then stay in school. So I chose this book to read because it was on a lot of school reading lists, and I really liked it. It was very, very short. It was 100 pages maybe. So I really liked that aspect. It was short, but it hit all of the right points that it was supposed to. And then in the back, it actually describes what of the story was true. So The Two Princesses of Bamera by Gail Carson Levin. Again, this is on my TBR for September. And I had read The Lost Kingdom of Bamera for Booktubeathon, which is kind of like the prequel, but The Two Princesses was written first. So I'm not sure which one I liked reading. Like, did I like reading The Lost Kingdom first, or should I have read The Two Princesses first? I think, like, I read them in order of the books, but I think it would have been interesting to read The Two Princesses first, because then you get this name, because they keep talking about like this famous fighter who was way back when, that's a legend and no one actually knows if he's true. But then in the prequel book you realize he's actually true. He's actually alive, and he was alive, I should say. So I think had I switched the books, I would have liked them better, but they were still pretty decent books. The next book I have is The Masked City by Genevieve Cogman. And again, on my TBR, it's the second book in the series, the Invisible Library series, starting with The Invisible Library. Now, this one's more of an adult book and adult fantasy. It deals with a library who kind of has doors to different worlds. So it doesn't really like belong to one place, one planet. So in that sense, I liked it, but I don't think I will be continuing the series just because of how it was written. It was decently written, but it wasn't my type of book, even though I work in a library, if that makes sense. So because it was kind of all over the place, maybe I'll finish it later, but as of right now, I don't think I'm going to finish the series. I think there are 4 or 5 books in the series. I just finished book 2, but yeah, it was okay. I think I gave it like a 3 on Goodreads, but yeah, it was okay. But there are other books I'd rather read right now. The next book that was on my TBR was I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. I did finish it because it was the adult book club book this month, and I do read it even though I am the children's librarian. And it was really interesting because it was Maya Angelou's time growing up, and I really liked how she portrayed living in the South, as well as then moving to St. Louis, and then moving back to the South with her grandmother, and seeing how she's different each time. And then she finally moves out to California and lives with her mother, and how kind of that whole dynamic works because she hasn't lived with her mother all that much throughout her life due to different reasons. And I really think it is a classic. It's a banned book. I think a lot of people should read this. I really liked it. It was really powerful, speaking to different people, her struggles in growing up and growing up Black, I should say. The next book that was on my TBR that I finished was Island of the Blue Dolphins by Scott Odell. It talks about a Native American who is left on an island after some non-Native Americans, I don't remember what race they were, it wasn't really stated, non-Native Americans took them off the island in order to save them. And she's left because her brother had went to go grab something. She realizes that he's not on the ship, so she jumped off the ship, swam to shore, and was with her brother. But this is also another one that's based on a true story. Scott Odell took some liberties and kind of fictionalized a lot of it because by the time the girl left the island, who took her off the island, they couldn't understand each other. She couldn't understand their language. They couldn't understand her language. So they couldn't really understand what happened before she died. I think they made some progress, but not a lot. So that was really interesting. I've kind of been into that, fictionalized history stuff. So I thought that was really cool. The next one that was on my TBR that I finished was The Story Collector by Kristen O'Donnell Tubb. This is a story about a girl who lives in the main branch of the New York Public Library because of her father being the superintendent. And there was this story that she was always told about a ghost who lived in the library. And it goes through like her and a friend of hers and her siblings who all meet this new girl who moved to the area. And she tries to impress the new girl by having her over and scare her into believing her ghost story that she's been telling everyone. Well, it turns out it was just, her brothers playing like a prank on the new girl. But then they realize someone else is with them. So I really liked it because I'm really interested in the New York Public Library, kind of seeing the history behind it. It was really cool book for the middle grades to get familiar with like the history of different libraries. Now the next 2 books weren't on my TBR for September, but I did read them. They were The Author's Odyssey and Worlds Collide, both by Chris Colfer, last 2 books in the series. And I really liked them because the whole series talks about kind of like what happens after ever after type thing, and all the famous characters know each other. Cinderella knows Snow White, knows Red Riding Hood, knows Bo Peep, knows Goldilocks, knows Jack and the Beanstalk. So they all talk about this stuff, and it's all action-packed, mystery, fantasy stuff, good versus evil type stuff. It's good for younger kids to get into the magic type worlds. So that's why I kind of like those. The next book I read was The Devil's Arithmetic by Jane Yolen, which was on my TBR. It's about a girl named Hannah who is Jewish. She opens the door for Elijah to come in during Passover, and she opens it to the past during the Second World War. And kind of what happens, I won't give away the end or anything, but it really reminded me of the book Anne and Me, which has a similar story, but the Devil's Arithmetic is slightly thinner than that one. The next one I read was Illumini by Amy Kaufman. It's really cool. I don't have the first one with me, but I have the second one because I just finished the second one. So this is what the second one looks like. And I really liked it because it was presented in a different format than I'm usually used to. This is a story about, it's a space opera, takes place in space, and it's about a colony who gets basically attacked and almost all get wiped out by this company named Bitech. Some of the people escape on these 3 ships and kind of what happens to these ships in space. And let me just show you in the second book. It's set up similar to the first one. You can see how it's kind of set up. It has like the companies and then, radio transmissions and the participants, the date and the time. So in that case, it's really interesting because you have the date and the time, so you can see how long the books take place. But that was just one part, because then you get, the WhisperNet, which is kind of like their Facebook Messenger. And then you also get, let me see, surveillance footage. But it has all of these different elements in the first book because someone has compiled all of this data together to send to Bitech's main person, the head of the company, saying, hey, I know what you did and I know why. So I thought that was really interesting. I finished the second one, which you saw was Gemini, and I have the third one on hold right now because it was really good. The last major book I read last month was The Lost Islands by Kazu Kibushi. Again, I murdered his last name last week. I probably murdered it this week too. I'm sorry. He's the one who wrote the Amulet series, but The Lost Islands is the second book of compilations of short graphics. So it was really interesting to see different comics or different graphics and different storylines. Again, short stories, but they were all really cool. That one, as well as Illumini, weren't on my TBR. They were just fun stories that I read. So those are the main books I read last September, or this past month in September. I did read other books for story times, but if I included all of those, we'd be here for a while, so I didn't. I hope you guys enjoyed all of these books, and please check out my Goodreads to see what I rated them and what I thought of them in those. But yeah, if you liked any of those books or didn't like any of those books, I'd love to hear your comments in the comments below, and I will see you guys later. Bye.